My friend, let me ask you something. Has your wife ever said, we don't really talk anymore? Or you're here, but you're not really here? Or maybe the worst, maybe you've heard her say, I feel like I don't even know you anymore. Feels like I'm married to a robot. Well, listen, that's not just small talk slipping away. That's intimacy eroding. And the research backs it up. The Gottman Institute found that 69% of marital conflict never gets resolved. Not because the couples don't love each other, but because they don't know how to actually connect in conversation. So today, I'm going to give you a framework that changes all of that. One ladder, 4 steps, and it's simple enough to remember when you're exhausted and powerful enough to rebuild closeness, even if you've been drifting for years. And the best part about this tool is that you can easily apply it to not just with your wife, but to connect with your kids and your business to make you a stronger leader. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, the place where high-performing men are empowered to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness while enhancing their career success. You see, in a world full of noise, burnout, and mediocrity, we believe what's missing is courageous and compassionate leadership in the home, because when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. You see, this isn't just a podcast. It's a movement of men who refuse to settle for less in our families, our focus, and our future. We are curse breakers and we are legacy makers. And I'm your host, Mitchell Osman, and I'm honored that you have chosen to invest your most valuable asset, which is your time with me today. Now let's get into it. All right, brother. Welcome to the show. If this is the first time tuning in, boy, I'm glad you're here. If you've been listening since episode 1, I'm equally as glad that you're still here. Listen, I am excited about today's show because I'm going to be teaching you a framework that I've been teaching my one-to-one clients, and it's all about how to connect with your wife on a deeper level emotionally. Because here's the truth. You might be listening and you can crush it in business, hit your numbers, get the promotion, and still fail at conversations that matter the most. Many of us are. A 2018 Pew Research study found that 56% of working parents feel that they don't spend enough time with their spouse. And you know what's crazy? The higher the income bracket, the worse the numbers get, because success at work often comes at the cost of presence at home. Now, it doesn't have to be that way, but this is why we're talking about this today. And I want to really talk about why men and women seem to struggle so much in marriage, especially high-performing men. Because in my experience, there are really 3 reasons why things can be so challenging for us. Number 1 is what I would call time poverty. Okay, career-driven men often give their best energy to the office and the leftovers when they get home. Right? By the time they walk in the door, you've spent all your words, all your focus, and all your patience. And you kind of end up giving the family the scraps. I know this because my wife said that almost verbatim to me. She said, I feel like you go to work and you give your colleagues, the Mitchell buffet, and you come home and you give me the scraps. If you're a longtime listener, you've heard me share that story before. The second reason I think why we struggle is because we have different emotional wiring. Right? Decades of research, including from psychologist Dr. John Gottman, which you've heard me quote him a lot, shows that women are generally more practiced in emotional expression. Men, meanwhile, often avoid emotions they can't fix or control. And this creates a gap, right? And she longs for that connection, but we retreat into silence. Now, we're going to talk a lot about that in next week's episode with Michael and Chris, where we get into why we struggle with our emotions as men. But the third reason is because I would call this cultural confusion. And for generations, men were told that their role was provision and protection. But today's marriages need more than a paycheck and a strong back. They need emotional presence. And very few of us were ever taught how to do that. Does that make sense? That's why so many high-performing men kind of quietly admit to themselves, man, I can close deals at work, but I can't seem to connect with the woman that I love. You're powerful at work, but you feel kind of powerless at home. Maybe you felt that way if you're listening today. Okay, so if you have heard your wife say any of these things, these 5 things, maybe one of them or all 5 of them, you can know that maybe there's some work to do today, okay? So here are the 5 phrases. We don't really talk anymore, right? Number 2, you never really listen. You just try to fix it. Number 3, it feels like we're just really effective roommates. Number 4, I don't feel close to you anymore. Number 5, I miss how it used to be when we first met. Now, there might be some other variations of this, like, I feel like I'm married to a robot. I know I've heard that one before. But these are red flags, right? But they're not the end. They're signals that you've been stuck on the bottom rung of connection. Now, from all of my experience with coaching men and walking through marriage myself, here are the 3 biggest struggles that really drive those words that you hear. Number 1 is that conflict feels like a bit of a treadmill, right? You fight about the same issues, money, kids, the in-laws, whatever, but nothing seems to change. And number 2, disconnection creeps in. You feel like co-managers of a household, not really lovers, right? You might know her calendar better than you actually know her. Number 3, emotional absence. You see, you're there physically, but maybe you're not there mentally or emotionally. And trust me, she feels that gap more deeply than you think. And if that's the case, I would simply say we need to work on being where our feet are. When you're showing up, when you're at the dinner table, there you are. When you're on a date with her, there you are. When you're at work, there you are. Be where your feet are. And here's some data to back that up. A long-term University of Michigan study led by Dr. Terry Orbuch, they followed 373 married couples for decades. Right? And she found that the number 1 predictor of long-term satisfaction wasn't sex, money, or parenting style. It was actually regular, meaningful conversation. That's how big this is. Now, next week, we're going to dig into some of these statistics a little bit more. But for right now, I'll say it again on this episode. We know in the U.S. today, 70% of all divorces are initiated by women. Right? Now, in situations where the wife is a high earner or has an education, those numbers jump to 90% of divorces are initiated by women. Okay, now of all of those divorces, around 80% of the time, the main reason for that divorce is because of emotional disconnection. Okay, this is huge, and this is why I talk about this so much. This is not feelings. This is not subjective. This is facts. This is data. Okay, so I talked a lot about the pain points. I've talked a lot about what you've heard. Now I want to give you the solution, okay? Because that's what we do. We're tactical. Hey, can I ask you something real quick? If this show has helped you out in any way, if you've gotten any value, clarity, or even just one gut check moment that's made you a better man, husband, or father, would you take 60 seconds and leave us an honest rating or review? And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss a drop. And if you really want to pay it forward, share this episode with a friend. Why? Because we know that there are millions of men out there silently struggling in their marriage, in their health, and in their mindset. Men who maybe were where you were just a few steps ago, feeling tired, stuck, and searching for answers. Finding this podcast might be the thing that changes everything for them. So thank you for being part of this movement and for helping more men become the husbands and fathers their families so desperately need. Now let's get back to the show. And it's called the R.I.S.E conversation ladder, because here's the truth. Most men don't need more time with their wife. They just need more quality in the minutes they already have. This isn't about quantity, it's about quality. And this is the big thing we miss, right? 30 minutes of truly present, undistracted, engaged conversation will be far better than even 3 hours of distracted time where your body may be there, but your mind is elsewhere. Your eyes are on your phone or the game or whatever else you're paying attention to, right? This is why I created this framework called the R.I.S.E conversation ladder, right? And the ladder has 4 rungs, okay? So stick with me. Routine, this is the basic level, the base level. Information, then story, then essence. And I want you to think about it as like a climb from surface talk to soul talk, all right? So let's break it down. Number 1, the lowest rung on the ladder is routine. This is where most of us live. It's logistics, okay? Routine-based questions are like, what time are you home? Did you grab the milk? Who's taking the kids tomorrow? This keeps the house running, but it doesn't keep the marriage alive, right? A Bureau of Labor Statistics report showed that the average couple with kids spends less than 35 minutes a day in real conversation. And actually, most of that is just about logistics. And that's why so many marriages start to feel like business partnerships. We treat our wives like a staff member or our kids like staff members, right? But for real, like, you talk to your employees or your colleagues probably far more than your family. And part of that is normal because of the sheer amount of time we spend working. But it makes it even more important for us to make the conversation count when we are at home, right? So that's the first rung. The second rung is information. This is the second level. Now, this is where we're kind of exchanging headline news. It's information about the day. So questions like, how was work? What did the teacher say? Did your mom call after? Now, this is better than silence, but if you stop here, your conversations essentially just become reporting, not relating, right? You're swapping headlines from the day. And the Gottman Institute warns that couples who stay stuck at this level have a 50% higher chance of emotional drift. Now, you can think of this information rung as a bit of an on-ramp into where the real conversation that your wife is craving, right? And that brings us to the third level, which is story, okay? This is where you move from what happened to how it felt. Does that make sense? So questions on the story level would be, what was the hardest part of your day? What made you proud today? Or another one might be what made you smile today and why? Or what do you wish I understood better about what you're dealing with right now? You see, Dr. Sue Johnson, which is the founder of Emotionally Focused Therapy, found that couples who share feelings, not just facts, see an 80% increase in emotional safety. My friend, this level is where we hesitate. Because we're constantly plagued with this idea that we need to fix it, right? But she doesn't need you to fix it. She needs you to hear it without flinching, okay? And as there's an author, David Augsburger, he said this one time, being heard is so close to being loved that for the average person, they are almost indistinguishable. Let me read that again. Being heard is so close to being loved that for the average person, they are almost indistinguishable. Okay? Now, for the fourth and final level, this is all about essence, right? This is where intimacy gets reborn. This is where meaning lives. This is where her fears, her faith, her dreams live. All right? So these kinds of questions would be like, what's been on your heart that you haven't said out loud lately? Another question could be, what dream keeps tugging at you that we haven't talked about? Or what's one thing you're praying for or believing for right now? Or another one might be, what's one thing that you'd love for our family to do, be, or see in the next 5 years? And just let her unpack it. And this is what your wife means when she says, I just want to feel close to you. It was never about sharing space. It was about sharing essence, our deepest desires, to be truly seen, to be truly heard, to be truly safe to share, right? Now, another study by Terry Orbuch, this was a long-term study of a bunch of thriving couples, and she actually did a TED Talk on this. And this study found that couples who have meaning-level conversations, right, which is what we're talking about, at least once a week report 2 times greater satisfaction and 3 times higher sexual intimacy than couples who only stay at that routine or information level. So here's the thing. Here's a big disclaimer. The payoff here is real, but so is the risk. Because going here means that you might have to hear her fears that you can't fix, or her dreams that might feel big and impossible. And you might want to put that pressure on yourself to make those come true. But that's okay, because it's not your job to do that. All right. You're not her savior. You're her safe place. Allow her to share. That's it. All right. So now this is all fine and good, but you're probably thinking, well, how does this work? Right? Give me an example of what we're talking about here. So let me walk you through a scenario. Okay. Number one. Hey, brother, does this sound familiar to you? Maybe you're powerful at work, you're respected, you're competent, you're driven, but when you walk through the door at home, you feel like a stranger. Maybe your marriage feels distant. Maybe your temper's shorter, your body's softer, and you've been stuck in this loop where you're showing up for everyone except for the people that matter the most. I know that pain because I lived it. And that's why I created the Dad Nation Coalition, which is a 1-year high-level coaching community for career-driven men who are done settling for success in only one area of their life. Inside the coalition, we don't just talk about growth, we build it. You will create a life that your wife wants to be a part of. You'll become a father your kids look up to. You'll wake up proud of the man staring back at you in the mirror. And here's the best part, you won't do it alone. You'll be surrounded by a brotherhood of men who will challenge your excuses, sharpen your edge, and celebrate your wins like family. In the DNC, you're going to get 12 months of bi-weekly coaching calls with me and the other members of the coalition. You're going to get a customized fitness and nutrition plan designed for your specific goals, and exclusive access to my flagship trilogy called The High Performance Husband. You're going to get a one-to-one mastermind with me where we build your blueprint for success in every area. And lastly, an invitation to our exclusive annual mastermind and retreat. So if you're ready to rebuild your body, reignite your marriage, and rise up as a high-performance man of purpose, then apply today. Go to dadnationco.com/DNC or hit the link in the show notes below. All right, now let's get back into it. So let me walk you through a scenario. Maybe you guys are both getting ready to go out on a night. You're going out to a friend's house, little party or something. You got the babysitter, all is well. The first level, routine-based question would be, what time are we leaving for the party, right? Second level is the information. Who's all going to be there? Okay. The third level with the story, this is where we get a little bit more into the narrative. Do you feel excited or anxious about seeing them? Again, we're talking about emotions, right? And then the fourth one, which is the deepest layer, what do you hope happens tonight that will make you feel more connected to our friends or to me or whatever? You see how we get deeper and deeper and deeper. Now, we've got some more examples coming up, but and I'm going to give you a tool that's going to really help with this, but that's kind of how it could play out for you, right? You see how it goes deeper and deeper. Now, before we keep going, I want to give you a tool that makes this super practical. And if you've listened to the podcast, you've heard me talk about this, but it's called the Connection Code, and it's totally free. This is 50 questions that you can use to spark the fun and get the fire back. And here's the thing. These questions are the perfect complement to use with this R.I.S.E conversation ladder, okay? I want you to think of it like a conversation playbook. You don't have to guess what to ask. It's right there in your hands. And these questions cover everything from like your fun, leisure, to passion, intimacy, calling, all that kind of stuff. And so if you're serious about climbing this ladder, right, about breaking out of shallow talk, go download the Connection Code for free and use that in conjunction with this. You just go to dadnationco.com/code, or you'll also find the link in the show notes. But use it tonight. Maybe you put the kids down, pour up a glass of wine, or maybe you want to plan a full-on date night. And here's the only rule. The only questions you can ask her during this time are questions from the code. Does that make sense? And then you're going to watch how quickly the atmosphere shifts when she begins to truly feel seen and heard. Now, before we wrap up the episode, I want to give you a bonus thought here, because this R.I.S.E framework doesn't just transform your marriage, it can also transform how you connect as a father and as a leader at work. Because whether it's your kids or your employees, people don't just want to be managed, they want to be known, okay? This is a universal concept that spans across all relationships. So how do we use this with our kids? Okay, well, think about them, right? Most dads stay on the bottom rung, routine and information. They ask questions like, hey, did you brush your teeth? How was school? Did you finish your homework? Right? It's important, but obviously that's not going to connect with them. But what if you climb the ladder, right? A story question could be, what was the best part of recess today? Or what made you laugh the hardest today? And let them tell you the story about what happened in their day. You know, an essence-based question would be, what's something that you've been worried about that you haven't told me yet? Or what's a dream that you've been thinking about lately? You see, Dr. Robert Brooks, which is a clinical psychologist who studied resilient kids for decades, he says this: the number one factor in a child's resilience is having at least one adult who deeply listens and believes in them. And men, you know what? Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I believe that should be you. Now, how do we use this framework as a leader? Let's talk leadership. Because high-performing men often think that effectiveness comes from strategy, or clarity, or decisiveness. Now, those things matter. It's true. But a giant workplace study that the Gallup Institute did found that 70% of employee engagement is tied directly to their relationship with their immediate supervisor. That means your words matter at work too. Most leaders stay on routine and information, right? Just getting those basic level questions. Did you get that report in? What's the update on that project? Right now, they're necessary to ask, but they're not inspiring. What if you took some time in a meeting to climb the ladder with them, right? A great story question would be, what's been the most challenging part of this project for you personally? Take that time, ask the question. An essence-based question could be, what's one skill that you'd love to develop here that would make you more fulfilled in your job? A Harvard Business Review recently published a research showing employees who felt heard are 4.6 times more likely to feel empowered to perform at their best. So when you climb the ladder with your team, you don't just manage tasks, you build trust. And trust is what drives performance. So now to wrap it up, whether it's your kid or your wife or your employees, the principle is the same. The conversation is the relationship, right? Routine keeps things running. Information keeps people updated. But story and essence, that's where loyalty, resilience, and intimacy are truly built. So I want to give you some reflection questions to think about as you continue on your day, whether you're on a drive or working out or doing some stuff around the house. Okay, listen to these questions. Which rung do you spend most of your time on of these four? Another question, when was the last time you and your wife really talked about something at the story or essence level? Or another question would be, what's one question you could ask your wife tonight to climb just one rung higher? And I love this quote from the poet David White. He says the conversation is the relationship. The conversation is the relationship. Friends, don't miss this, okay? This is the secret. The quality of the relationship depends on the quality of the conversation. If you want a better marriage, you don't need a vacation. You need better words, okay? Now, next week on the podcast is going to be a Drop Zone episode with Michael and Chris, which we're actually going to talk about the 3 R's to emotional mastery. And that episode is going to pair perfectly with the information you've learned today, because you're going to be able to use all that info from next week to understand your emotions and to put an end to the blow-ups and to learn how to connect and communicate more effectively. And then you're going to be able to use this framework today to connect more deeply than ever before, thus mitigating more clashing and conflict in the future. So as we wrap up this conversation today, brother, don't settle for routine, okay? Don't settle for swapping headlines about your day. Tonight, I want you to ask her one question that makes her pause. One question that opens her up to you. Because your words aren't just sentences, they're signals. And those signals say, you matter, I see you, I want you. And your kids are watching, right? They're learning from you right now on how to talk to their future spouse. So stop living on the bottom rung, climb the ladder every day. And thank you. Thank you for joining me on the Dad Nation podcast. If this helped you, share it with another dad who needs it. Because, hey, you know what? I actually don't think I've ever met a man who hasn't struggled with this. So I know if you know other men then there's 100% chance that there is someone in your life that you could share this, a brother you can share this episode with. Send this episode to them, hit follow on the show, and also don't forget to download that free gift, the connection code, to reignite your marriage. It's going to be in the show notes. Until next time, lead strong, love deeper, never stop climbing. I'm in your corner. Talk soon. Thank you for tuning into the Dad Nation podcast today. Listen, if today's conversation challenged you, if it encouraged you or helped you level up in any area of your life, would you do me a favor? Take 60 seconds to rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. This helps us reach more men who need to hear this message. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Dad Nation YouTube channel, where you're going to find full episodes, clips, and exclusive content designed to help you win at home just like you do at work. Remember, your family does not need perfection. They need your presence. Your leadership matters. So keep showing up, keep leveling up, and never forget, when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. We'll see you next time.